Hello, this is Jackie M from JP Teres. I just had to catch an elevator down from the beautiful, beautiful 38 restaurant upstairs to the ground floor I am now, and I've just been told I'm doing this on my own, so let's do it. If I'm good at anything, it's just kind of doing things on the fly, okay? So I am going to show you, I'm not actually doing any cooking, I'm actually just going to show you a couple of the signature dishes at this restaurant. It's called JP Teres, Teres spelled T-E-R-E-S, down at the ground floor of the Grand Hyatt in Kuala Lumpur. And I've been eating here every day pretty much since I arrived in Kuala Lumpur about 9 days ago. This is my last day here and this is my final hangout. And I've been eating one thing every single time I've come to this restaurant, and it's something called popia, okay? If you're Malaysian, you'll know popia as a fresh spring roll. And everybody wants to know how to make the spring roll skin. I'm not going to show you that today. I've got a video on YouTube if you want to check it out. One of my very, very early ones from 2 years ago, how to make popia skin. You don't see my face in there, but have a look at that. And the beauty about coming to Malaysia is, like, in Australia, people are always asking me, oh, you know, where can I buy popia skin? And John Koo is one of my good Facebook friends who is always looking for fresh popia skin. I make my own, but it's so much trouble to make popia skin. It's kind of like it's like gold to me, you know. So now I'm not going to sell any of my popia skin now. So anyway, I'm going to show you some of the ingredients. It's a little bit different to what I use in my popia, but let me quickly show you the popia skin to the uninitiated. And here you go, we've got a huge, this is a really, really heavy steamer basket full of popia skin. And this is what they look like, beautifully uniform, okay? John Koo will be crying his eyes out at the sight of this. I've got a huge, like about the, oh, jeepers, this is about a 3-inch thick layer of popia skin over here. And it's an acquired skill, something that I have, in fact, acquired, which sets me apart from a lot of, it's actually been written about me as well. Okay, but basically the way you would make the skin, this is what it is. It just looks like spring roll skin, and if you don't know how to make it yourself, a lot of overseas Malaysians actually just buy frozen spring roll skin, those square sheets that you can get in the freezer section of Asian grocery stores to make this. So it's not quite the same, but in terms of ingredients, all of this is really just plain flour. I stick a little bit of tapioca flour in mine, a bit of salt, a little bit of oil, a bit, some water, mix it up, let it sit overnight, and then stick it in a dough mixer until it's really, really springy and rubbery, and then you grab touches of it by the fizz, and then you kind of smear a griddle at a particular range of temperature, because if it's not hot enough, it's not going to work. If it's too hot, it's not going to work either. It has to be within a set range of temperature to be able to get this working properly. So, and I've never tried this because I never use electric cooking gadgets, but if you have, I would imagine if you've got like an electric frying pan that's non-stick, that might actually work perfectly if you set it within the range of 80 to 105 degrees. 80 to 100 degrees, just to be safe. That might actually work, and then you never have to worry about whether it's too hot or too cold. Okay, so there you go. That's my tip of the day. It's already been worth your while tuning in to watch this. But this is what popia skin looks like. Very soft. It's quite moist because they stick a damp towel to cover it in. Otherwise, it will dry out, and it won't say. You won't be able to use it anymore because it will break up when you try and wrap with it. Now, in terms of ingredients that go into this popia, this is a chili paste, okay, and this has been cooked with, well, it's been mixed with some vinegar and a little bit of sugar. So this is like fresh chili paste, very, very nice. And this is interesting. I thought I tasted this in my popia when I was eating at the restaurant. This is just fresh pureed garlic, okay? This isn't something I put in my popia. And this is another point of difference between the popia at JP Teres, Grand Hyatt, and mine. This is kicap manis, which is a sweet soy sauce, a little bit thick. A lot of people who know Indonesian cooking would know kicap manis. A lot of people assume we Malaysians use kicap manis a lot. We don't actually use it that much. It's not as much as you would expect. So this kicap manis, I use hoisin sauce, okay? That's my point of difference. And you've got like garnishes like lettuce, bean sprouts, Okay, this is raw bean sprouts. I usually blanch mine a little bit. Malaysian bean sprouts, I don't know if you've noticed, tend to be a little bit chubbier and shorter. Australian ones tend to be a bit longer and bigger. And prawns, okay, these are just poached prawns that have been sliced half down the middle, so they're thinner. And this is another interesting one. I actually usually make omelets, and I make egg omelets and then cut them up into thin shreds. This is actually boiled egg, okay? It looks like boiled egg, I'm pretty sure it is, and it looks like it's being fed through a grater of some sort, like maybe like a chendol maker or something like that. Okay, so this is just shredded egg. Any kind of egg will do. Remember, I make omelets, so you can do that as well. And this is another point of difference. This is crushed toasted peanuts, okay? I don't use crushed toasted peanuts in my popia. Okay, now I am going to show you the popia filling that they use over here. Okay, it's got quite a lot of sauce in it, but you also use a slotted spoon to take out the filling with, okay? And what they have, this is basically what we call, I mean, Malaysians call it turnip actually, but in the US they call it jicama, or Mexican potato. In Australia we call it yam bean, and Chinese we call it sakot, in Malay we call it sengkuang, and if you're Hokkien you call it bangkuang. So there are lots and lots of names that this thing goes by. In Australia, whatever you call it is very, very expensive. Okay, so there you go, sengkuang, and it's been shredded quite fine, a little bit finer than how I usually do it, and it's been stewed, it's been fried up. I usually fry it up with some garlic, but it has some shredded carrots in it as well, and also some dried shrimp, which is what I use as well, okay? And it's got a little bit of sugar in it, and they put a bit of salt and pepper. I usually actually use a bit of chicken stock granules in it, but you don't have to. So there you go. These are the ingredients that go into a popia over here. I'm going to have a go at it, and I'm going to show you how it's wrapped up. Let me just try and get a couple of these things out of the way. Okay. This is, by the way, this is probably about 8 inches, 10 inches in diameter. Okay. And you're going to use a spatula. First up, I'm going to stick some kicap manis on this, okay? And I remember watching them do this at the Grand Hyatt in Singapore, but they put a lot of kicap manis on this. Usually when I'm using hoisin sauce, I only smear it down the middle, okay? I'm going to split the difference and put a bit more, but not try and like encircle the entire thing with it like what I saw them do at the Grand Hyatt in Singapore. This clearly is not Singapore, this is Grand Hyatt in Kuala Lumpur, so they may or may not do it a little bit different. Then I'll put some chili on it. You can leave the chili out if you like. Okay. Some of the garlic paste. This I'm a little bit nervous about because raw garlic is quite a different animal. I love my garlic, but raw garlic is like, oh, okay, you got to be a little bit careful with that. I'm going to put some lettuce, okay. Some of the prawns. Some of the bean sprouts. Some egg, just sprinkle a bit of the peanuts on, and I'm gonna finally put the filling on. And the reason actually when I used to do this at my restaurant, I would put the filling on towards the end because the filling is actually quite wet. And this is much better quality popia skin than what I ever managed to do because mine tends to be very, very fragile and very temperamental. So I didn't want it to fall apart before I put everything else in. So there you go. And being greedy, I put quite a fair bit of filling on this. Now what you want to do is just fold up the middle. I'll fold up the 2 sides here. And then you're going to pull this up and wrap it around. And then pull it towards you, okay? Just like this. Okay, and then wrap it up. I hope this knife is good enough to... Okay, it looks like it's going to do the job. There you go, that's the popia. And being me, I like my popia really large. Okay, but the ones they have at the buffet at the JP Teres are actually miniature ones. Okay, but this is a nice big one. And I make big ones at my restaurants as well. So there you go. I'm just going to plate this up. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. I'm going to take photos of this. I know the people, Malaysians back in Australia, are going to be weeping and wishing they can sink their teeth into this. There you go. That's popia, courtesy of JP Teres. So there you go. Remember the ingredients. Hopefully I'll be able to get hold of the recipe and I'll post it on my social media. I think I've shared my popia. Yeah, I'm sure I've shared my popia recipe long time ago now on one of my blogs or whatever. But again, it's always interesting to kind of like see how other people do things and see their points of difference. Just let me get this out of the way. I'm going to now move on to the laksa. Now, when I was here filming last week, I was here with my Australian TV crew, and JP Teres has a huge buffet spread with Chinese, Indian, Malay sections and all that. But my TV crew, every night they came for buffet. Remember, buffet, the whole concept of buffet is like you eat all you want. You try and have a little bit of everything, you know. What they would always go for is the laksa. Okay, so I've convinced them to show me their laksa recipe, and this is quite intriguing. Again, I'm not going to try and cook this because this is a working kitchen we're in at the moment, and they are actually preparing for the Ramadan buffet later on tonight. So they're quite busy where they do all their cooking up the other end. We don't want to disturb them. So they very kindly put all these together. Just let me get this out of the way. Here we go. Thank you, sir. Okay, now the laksa, they've given me the recipe here, so I'm going to be sharing it with you guys. But the laksa here is a couple of points of difference, okay? I did a laksa, my laksa recipe is actually kind of like Malacca influence laksa. The way I do it is a little bit different. Everyone knows I use a lot of shortcuts in my cooking, and I actually demoed it a couple of days ago at the Grand Hyatt in Singapore. But we are going to go through the ingredients that go into a laksa that is served at the JP Teres in Kuala Lumpur, okay? The difference in the laksa here is that the curry laksa actually tastes like a kind of like a milder, kind of like a curry flavored soupy dish. Really, is what I guess is the best way to describe it. But now, really interesting. I'm going to post my. If anyone has my cookbook out there, they have my laksa recipe. All right, so stop harassing me about it. But I will reshare it on social media and on my blog down the track. But anyway, the laksa paste ingredients that I use in my one that I covered yesterday, 2 days ago at the Grand Hyatt, have things like turmeric, galangal, lemongrass, garlic, onion, that sort of stuff. Now, the one at JP Teres, they've got, they use meat curry powder, okay? Remember, meat curry powder, I use that a lot, I mentioned that a lot, and people have no idea. If you're not Malaysian, you're like, you know, what's a meat curry powder? But all these different curry powders essentially share similar traits. It doesn't matter if you can't find meat curry powder, it's okay, all right? But meat curry powder generally is just basically a blend of spices that are probably best suited for meat dishes. And then fish curry powder, that's the point of difference. Fish curry powder would be something that's more suited for fish curries or seafood and that sort of stuff as well. Having said that, anything goes. It's not like you're only allowed to use meat curry powders for meat and vice versa. You can use it for whatever you want if you like the flavor. It's just, a personal thing. But, okay, kind of ingredients that go into a laksa, a JP Teres, meat curry powder, coriander powder, which I don't use in my laksa, okay? Dried shrimp, which I do use, lemongrass, which I do use, laksa leaves that I sprinkle over the top of my laksa bowl. They actually use the laksa leaves and simmer it in the broth to get the flavors out, okay? That's quite interesting. So they've got garlic, they've got fresh chili, they've got onion, all the same kind of ingredients that I use. Cooking oil, obviously, and they simmer all this. And the other thing is the ginger flower. That's another thing I have always told people. I cannot find ginger flower wherever I look, high and low, in Sydney, Australia. So anyone out there who's going to give me very specific, I know people say, oh, you can see it in Chinatown sometimes, or you can see it in Thai town sometimes. I want actual names of shops, okay? Anytime someone insists they can see it anywhere, I've gone to those places and hunted high and low at all the freezers of all these shops in that general vicinity of Sydney and never been able to find ginger flower. If you can find it, let me know. Like I said, I need it for nasi kerabu, but apparently I need it for the JP Teres laksa soup as well. So what you do with the ginger flower, you just cut it down, slit it down, half in the middle, and then you simmer it in the broth as well. Okay, so that's very, very interesting. That's the laksa soup. As with any kind of Malaysian curry-ish dish, what you would do is combine like the meat curry powder with a bit of water to mix it into a paste, and then you saute it with the garlic, the onion, the lemongrass, and that sort of stuff, and the dried shrimp until, you know, for about 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes if you're using a lot of onion, okay, till the oil separates and it's kind of like a golden yellow, golden brown color. Then you add the coconut cream, coconut milk if you're using coconut milk, and then just boil everything, okay? And you can use stock in this. I cheat. I use chicken stock granules in my soup, but you can use stock. You can use prawn stock or chicken stock, and then you boil it, and that's your laksa broth. Anyone wants to attempt this? Like I said, I'm going to be posting the recipe, so don't try and work all this out too much. But in terms of the kind of, they've got a beautiful, beautiful laksa station over here, by the way, as well, at the JP Teres restaurant. And basically, it's kind of like a big, you know, sort of like hot water with several sections. You've got like either soup in one section, you've got the water for blanching your noodles and vegetables and that sort of stuff, and you've got laksa soup and that sort of stuff. So you can say, oh, I want this type of noodle, and I want that, I want dumplings in it, I want fish balls in it, I want yong tau fu stuffed vegetables in it, and that sort of stuff. Whatever, you tell the chef, they'll blanch it up for you, toss it into a bowl, and then you tell them, oh, I want a curry laksa soup with it, or I want a chicken broth with it, or whatever. Okay, so that's such a brilliant idea. I'm surprised it hasn't taken off in Australia. Okay, but in terms of the ingredients that go into this, they've very kindly pre-blanched all this for me. Okay, I've got some yellow noodles, okay, and I rant about this all the time, but you know, laksa, whatever you feel like that you want to go in your laksa soup, go for your life. You're not kind of straight-jacketed into any particular type of noodles. It's just like eating pasta, okay? If you like bolognese but you don't care for spaghetti, you prefer fettuccine bolognese, do it, okay? It's not, you know, no one's gonna take you to task about it. So there you go, yellow noodles. And this is something I really, really, really like, okay? And if you're Malaysian, you know what this is, okay? These are blood cockles, and they're tiny, okay? I'm just gonna hold it up. They're tiny. The ones in Sydney are like, okay, this is about the size of my index finger, okay? The ones in Sydney are about this size, okay, and they're really thick and rubbery. Don't get those, you know, they're just not the same. They don't do justice to the whole idea of eating blood cockles. But if you're in Malaysia, get blood cockles. These are pre-blanched, okay? So you've got that, and then there's some prawns. Now, blood cockles are very traditional the topping that goes with laksa over here. You've got some sliced chili that's decorative mostly. You've got these calamansi limes, okay? There you go. And for the longest time, I thought you couldn't get calamansi lime in Australia, so until I got set straight by these lovely global overseas Malaysians on Facebook who told me, oh, no, yeah, I've got a calamansi plant at home. So, oh, what do you know? And apparently you can just buy it at Flower Power. So it shows what I know. Just tofu puffs. Now, a lot of Aussies, strangely, and to me it's quite strange because I grew up with this, okay, but these are tofu puffs. A lot of Aussies know tofu, they know hard tofu, they don't understand the idea behind tofu puffs. Okay, we use tofu puffs in our curries because they are basically like little sponges. They're essentially tofu that have been deep fried until they kind of expand, and they look like a little, you know, they look like basically like bar sponges. Okay, and the beauty about tofu puffs is that they absorb all the flavors of whatever they're cooked in. So you chew into them, you get this whole explosion of flavor in your mouth, okay? And then some Aussies think, oh, there's something wrong with the tofu that you're serving. No, they're supposed to be spongy, okay? And there's some vegetables here. These are just blanched snake beans, okay? I mentioned fish balls before, okay? You can get fish balls in your laksa soup as well. These are cut into halves. And fish cake, okay? You can buy these at Asian grocery stores, both the fish balls and the fish cakes. Almost nicer to make your own. These are not too dissimilar to those Japanese fish cakes, except that Asian fish cakes. You just have a look in the Asian grocery section, in the freezer section of Asian grocery stores, or actually the refrigerated section. I'm sorry. And these are tauge or bean sprouts as well. And like I mentioned earlier, the bean sprouts in Malaysia tend to be a little bit shorter, stumpier, and a little bit chubbier. Okay, and this is the laksa soup over here. I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, it looks more of a, it's a lot stronger, a lot more, how would you say, strong, a lot more strong flavored than mine. Mine tends to be quite light and quite, I guess, I use a lot of fresh herbs in my laksa garnish. Okay, so it's a little bit, it's got different nuances to it, and I always tell people to, you know, to the cows come home that there are lots and lots of different versions of laksa. There's no one right version or whatever. So I think if you've ever been to Sarawak, you know Sarawak laksa tastes completely different as well. I'm just going to borrow a spoon just so I can taste the laksa with a little bit. But I'm just going to, in the meantime, thank you, organize all this. Okay, so I've got the laksa noodles, bean sprouts, some tofu puffs, and usually what I want to do is actually poach the tofu puffs in the laksa soup as well. Okay, some fish cake and some of the snake beans. I'm going to town here with the stuff I'm putting in. A couple of prawns, and my favorite, the blood cockles. And I'm just going to ladle the soup over this. And now I'm going to taste this. My TV crew who've had to go back to Sydney and then on to other parts of the world are going to be so jealous. I'm going to take a photo of this and they can see what this looks like. I'm going to top this up with some chili. Okay, there you go. That's the JP Teres laksa. Like I said, it's very different. It's very different to even the laksa at the Grand Hyatt in Singapore. And that's because the Singaporean Grand Hyatt has a Singapore laksa on their menu as opposed to this one, which is more in tune with local flavors and local taste. So that's what we call Malaysian curry laksa. I'm going to take a photo of it. Thank you very much for joining me, and thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. And don't forget to keep a watch out for the recipes for the popia, courtesy of JB Teres, and for the curry laksa, courtesy of JB Teres. And if ever you're in KL, don't forget, look out the Grand Hyatt, which is just actually literally next door to the KLCC. It's so convenient. So I hope to see you again. I'll be back in Sydney tomorrow. Okay, ciao.